Justin, 22 here. This is the story of how my dad kicked me out of the house. You might think it sounds like one of those family drama cliches, but trust me, is different. Dad suspended me from home until I apologized to my golden child sister. I just said all right. The next morning, I was gone and what followed destroyed them all. Iowa started when I was 17, and no, it wasn't just one incident. This wasn't about one fight with my sister Ashley or one argument with my parents. It was the culmination of years of being ignored, belittled, and treated like a second-class citizen in my own damn house. Let me paint the picture. I grew up as the invisible kid in my family. You know, the one who tries his best to stay out of the way, keeps his head down, and still somehow ends up getting the short end of every stick. My Ashley was the golden child. Ever since she was little, she was the one who got all the attention, all the praise, all the special treatment. It was obvious to anyone who walked into our house. Strangers would notice it. At dinner, waiters would treat us differently based on how my parents fond of her, buying her whatever she wanted, never questioning her needs, always indulging her. Meanwhile, I was stuck with hand-me-downs, old phones, and life where my only option for any kind of luxury was to earn it myself. And I asked for something. I had to justify it, save up, and sometimes even beg for it. You think that doesn't build resentment? You'd be wrong. I wasn't just jealous. I was tired of feeling like I was invisible. And that's just the surface. The reeker was how my parents treated me, especially my dad. There was never any room for me to be a priority. I'd get home from school, and there would be Ashley, all smiles and attention, while I stood off to the side, ignored. When I got a job at the local hardware store, I was proud of myself, working long hours, saving money for college. But no one at home acknowledged it. My success was just expected, like I was supposed to be the responsible one while she got to be the spoiled brat. Even the little things, her curfew was whenever she felt like coming it was 9 p.m. on weekends. She could hang out with friends anytime, while I had to schedule everything days in advance, only if she wasn't busy. But I'd learned not to rock the boat. Complaining only made things worse. Dad would lecture me about being jealous of Ashley. Mom would cry about family and Ashley. She'd smirk, finding ways to make everything worse when they weren't looking. I stopped talking about it, stopped asking for equality, and just buried my feelings. I was 15, I had completely given up. My family's idea of love was conditional, and I wasn't the one they loved. So, I did what any kid would do under those circumstances. I buried myself in school and my part-time job. The job started simple, stocking shelves. The owner, started teaching me things, how to mix paint, how to cut keys, how to help customers. He even taught me a bit of plumbing and electrical work. He said I had a good head for practical stuff and shouldn't on just stocking shelves. You've got common sense, he'd tell me. That's rarer than you think. Those words meant more to me than anything my parents had ever said. For the first time, I felt like someone saw me as more than just an obligation. But all that changed one Tuesday afternoon. I was sitting at my desk, studying calculus, my mind racing through derivatives, when Ashley barged in without knocking again. Standard Ashley behavior. She didn't care if I was busy. She didn't care, needed my space. She wanted something, and she wanted it now. Can I borrow your laptop? She asked, not even looking at me. I didn't even bother to look up from my work. No, I have a huge assignment due. It's just for 10 minutes. I shook my head. I'm using it. Wait until it's charged, or use the family computer downstairs. She wasn't having it. I can't wait. This is due first period. Not my problem, I said, trying to stay focused. Her expression turned to a familiar pout. You're being such a jerk. I'm being someone who's busy, I said, my voice steady. That was when her tone shifted. You're so selfish, Justin. You never help me with anything. You're the worst brother ever. I didn't respond. Said it all before. She was relentless, and I was done arguing. But instead of leaving, she stood there, listing all the ways I had failed her as a brother. Are you even listening to me? She demanded, her voice rising, flatly. And that was when it happened. In one swift motion, she grabbed my textbook, the one I had been working from all afternoon, and threw it across the room. Pages bent, my bookmark fell out, and I was left staring at a mess of water, ink, and ruined homework. All my work gone. I couldn't even speak. The anger didn't come, at least not at first. It was something colder, something clearer. This was it, this was straw. She had destroyed hours of my work over a stupid laptop. And the worst part, she didn't even look sorry. She looked satisfied. In that moment I stood up, calmly walked over to her, grabbed her arm, not roughly, just firmly, and guided her out of my room. I didn't yell. I just moved her. The door closed behind me. She didn't take it well. Her fist started pounding on the door. "I'm telling Dad. You're going to get in so much trouble for putting your hands on me." I didn't have to. I just stood there, looking at the mess she had made, trying to process the finality of it all. Then came the sound of my dad pounding on my door. "Justin, open this door right now." I opened the door slowly, taking a deep breath, trying to steady myself before facing whatever was coming. My dad was standing there, his face already red, veins bulging from his neck. Behind him, Ash licking like the picture of innocence, tears streaming down her face in a perfect performance. "Why did you put your hands on your sister?" Dad demanded before I could even say anything. His voice was low, but it was filled with that righteous anger he served for when he thought he was in the right. I took a breath, trying to stay calm. "She came into my room and destroyed my property. I moved her out. She was being physical with me, not the other way around." My voice was steady, but my heart was pounding in my chest. I knew how this would go. I didn't even get a chance to explain myself before he'd already made up his mind. "She says you grabbed her and shoved her into the hallway," said his missive. "I didn't shove her," I replied, my voice flat. "I escorted her out of my room after she threw my textbook and ruined my homework." Dad glanced into my room, taking in the mess. The textbook was on the floor, ensopled and soaked with water. My papers were scattered, wet, the ink running in smudges. The calculator was beeping sadly, completely ruined. He didn't even flinch. His eyes moved quickly from the wreckage to me, then back to Ashley. "I don't care what she did," he said, crossing his arms. "You don't put your hands on your sister ever." Ashley stood there, still crying, but now there was a smug look on her face. I could see it, the satisfaction in her eyes as she watched Dad take her side. This was the game she always played. Fake tears, fake helplessness, and Dad always fell for it. I pointed at the mess on my desk. "Look at it. 3 hours of calculus homework ruined." She barged in here, demanded my laptop, threw my book across the room when I said no. Dad didn't even look at the mess for more than a second. "You can redo it. It's due tomorrow morning." "First period," I said, my voice getting tighter. "I don't have 3 hours tonight. I also have a history quitting and a shift at the hardware store. You think I can just redo it? It's not that simple." "You should have thought of that before you put your hands on your sister," he snapped, his face turning a darker shade of red. I shook my head, frustration bubbling in me. "No, Dad. I didn't put my hands on her. I removed her from my room. She physically attacked me." "You grabbed her," he insisted. "You're twice her size. You should have known better." His voice had the finality of a man who was used to get in his way, no matter what. "So what? Because I'm bigger than her, I'm supposed to let her destroy my stuff." I couldn't hold it back anymore. "She hit me first. She's the one who crossed the line. When I stood up for myself, I'm the one who gets punished. Does that seem fair to you?" His face went purple, the veins in his neck standing out. I could tell he wasn't hearing me anymore. He was too busy being outraged, too busy believing Ashley's version of events. "Look at her," I said, pointing at Ashley, who was still crying with dramatic sobs. "She's lying. She's been lying to you for years, and you don't even see it. You always side with her, no matter what she does." "Enough," Dad shouted, cutting me off. "You're going to apologize to your sister right now. I don't care what happened. You're not going to act like this in my house." I stared at him, trying to find semblance of the father I had once respected. But there was nothing there. The man standing before me wasn't someone who cared about the truth, who cared about fairness. He wasn't the protector I'd hoped he would be. He was just another player in Ashley's game. "For what?" I asked quietly, shaking my head. "What am I apologizing for? She attacked me. She destroyed my work. And you want me to apologize for standing up for myself?" Dad didn't answer. He just staring at me, expecting me to fold like I always had before. He crossed his arms, waiting for me to cave. "I'm not apologizing," I said, my voice low but firm. "I didn't do anything wrong. I'm not going to apologize for defending myself." Ashley's tears stopped. Ruth returned. "You're the worst brother ever." "I hate you," she said, wiping her face dramatically. Her voice was sharp, cutting through the air with a venom I knew all too well. "Apologize, Justin," Dad demanded again, his voice shaking with anger. "No," I said, more confidently this time. "I'm not apologizing for something I didn't do. I'm not going to say sorry when I'm the one who was wronged." The silence that followed was thick. I could feel the tension in the air, the weight of their expectations pressing down on me. But I couldn't, no, I wouldn't, given this time. I wasn't going to let them manipulate me anymore. "You're grounded," Dad finally said, his voice cutting through the stillness. "No phone, no computer, no friends. You stay in your room until you apologize. You want to disrespect your family. Fine. You can think about it. The words hit me like a slap. Grounded for what? For defending myself. Until you apologize, he repeated. Your choice. I stood guessing what he just said. Grounded. Suspended from my own house for not apologizing for something I didn't even do. I wasn't angry though. Not yet. It was something worse. Cold, like I was looking at everything from the outside, realizing how unfair it all was. All right, I said, finally fine, I'll stay in my room. I won't apologize though. Dad blinked, surprised by my lack of resistance. Ashley didn't look so smug anymore though. She looked like she was waiting for the bread. Good, Dad said, his voice still harsh. Hand over your phone and laptop. Without a word, I handed them over. Ashley's eyes sparkled with something close to victory as she watched me comply, but I didn't care. I wasn't giving out. I watched Dad leave, Ashley trailing behind him, her face still twisted with satisfaction. The door clicked shut, and I was alone. Alone with my thoughts and ruined homework and my broken family. And for the first time, I realized that I didn't have to be part of this anymore. I didn't have to stay here, live under their roof, and be their punching bag. I was done. The door clicked shut behind them, and I stood there in the silence of my room, the weight of everything crashing down on me. The room felt smaller now, suffocating. My homework, my work, everything was ruined. I looked at the papers, the ink bleeding into a mess, and felt a deep, hollow anger. But it wasn't just anger. It was a quiet realization that something had broken inside me. I was just angry at Ashley for destroying my homework. I wasn't just mad at my dad for choosing her side without even listening to me. I was angry at myself. Angry for letting this go on for so long. I had been given for years. Letting them treat me like this. Letting them ignore me. Dismiss me. All for the sake of keeping the peace. But what had it gotten me? A destroyed homework assignment and a family that never even cared to ask what really happened. I took a deep breath, looking at the pile of soggy notes. The pages were warped, ink smudged. I had to redo it all. There was no choice. It wasn't just the assignment that mattered, it was what that assignment represented. It was one more thing that I worked hard for. One more thing that was taken from me, like everything else in my life. I could hear Ashley's voice in my head now, even though she wasn't there. You're the worst brother ever. She always said that when things didn't go her way. And Dad always ready to throw the hammer down without question. You're grounded until you apologize. I looked at my phone sitting on the dresser confiscated. I wanted to call Mr. Wilson, ask for extra shifts at the hardware store. I wanted to get out of this house, but I couldn't, not yet. I was stuck here, in this room, with nothing but the mess in my thoughts. And my thoughts kept aiming to the same place of leaving. I had the savings, enough for a bus ticket, maybe even a cheap motel for a night. But I needed something more. I needed a plan. I sat down at the desk, the chair creaking under me as I set to work, trying to salvage whatever I could of my homework. But the more I tried to focus, the more my mind wandered back to the night before, to the look on Dad's face when he condemned me, without ever hearing me out. The way Ashley's fake tears turned to a smug little smile once I was in trouble. That was the moment I realized I was done. This wasn't a family I could ever go back to. When I was younger, I used to think I had to fix things. If I art hard enough, it kept my head down and followed the rules. They'd see me, they'd finally notice. But the reality was that no matter what I did, I was always going to be the outsider in my own family. The second chuck up. And that's what hurt the most. It wasn't the injustice, it wasn't the lies. It was the fact that I had spent so many years hoping they'd love me, that they'd see me as someone worth fighting for. But they never would. They'd always take Ashley's side. Always. My phone buzzed on the dresser. I picked it up, instinctively checking it despite knowing it was useless. It was a text from Mr. Wilson. Hey Justin, we're short-handed this week. You up for some? At the text for a moment, then put the phone back down. It didn't matter. I could go work my ass off at the hardware store, but it wouldn't change a damn thing at home. It wouldn't fix what was broken. I stood up, grabbed my backpack, and started to pack it. I didn't even know where I was going, but I couldn't stay here anymore. The thought of facing another day under this roof, with no one backing me up, was suffocating. I took some clothes, my potional things, the little bit of money I had saved up, enough to get me through the next few days. My heart was pounding now, but it wasn't out of fear. It was the rush of making a decision I'd never thought I'd make. I was leaving. The sound of my dad stared up the stairs, but I didn't listen. I didn't care anymore. It wasn't about them anymore. It was about me. I shoved a few more things into the bag, then zipped it up. This was it. I wasn't coming back. I didn't care. I didn't care if they tried to guilt me into returning. I was done. I opened the door slowly, listening for any sign that someone was nearby. There was nothing. I crept down the stairs, careful not to make a sound, and stopped for the kitchen. I left a note on the counter, short, to the point. Gone. Don't look for me. I stepped out the front door, the cool night air hitting me like a slap in the face. I didn't even know where I was going yet. But I knew one thing for sure: I wasn't going to keep pretending I belonged in that house anymore. I walked to my car, a beat-up old Honda Civic. The engine sputtered to life when I turned the key, and I pulled out of the driveway without looking back. I could feel the weight lifting off my shoulders with every mile that passed. It was strange. I'd spent so many years fighting for a place in that house, but the moment I drove away, I realized that I didn't need them. Not anymore, not plan, not really, but I had one goal: to be free, to never again let someone else define my worth. I wasn't going to be their punching bag anymore, and for the first time in a long time, I felt alive. I drove through the night, the hum of the engine drowned noise in my head. There was no turning back now. The headlights cut through the dark streets, and each mile felt like I was leaving my old life behind. The house, my family, the endless cycle of blame. They all started to fade in the rearview mirror, and something inside me started to feel lighter. I pulled into Uncle Bobby's driveway around 6 a.m., just as the sun was starting to peek over the horizon. The familiar smell of motor oil and grease hit me neatly. Bobby's house wasn't much older, modest 3-bedroom with a creaky front porch, but it felt like the only place in the world that might actually be mine. I grabbed my duffel bag from backseat, then knocked on the door. A few moments later, Bobby opened it, his face still groggy from sleep. His eyes widened when he saw me standing there, carrying my bag. "Well, look who's here," he said, his voice rough from sleep but warm. He stepped aside. "Come in, kid. You look like you could use a cup of coffee." I didn't have to say anything. Bobby didn't ask what happened, didn't demand an explanation. He just made a pot of coffee, poured it strong and black. It sat down at the kitchen table with me. It was the first time in years that I didn't feel like I had to explain myself, like I had to justify my actions. We sat in silence for a few minutes. "You want to talk about it?" I took a long sip of coffee, trying to gather my thoughts. "Not really. I'm just done, you know. Done with the lies, done with the double standards, done with always being the one." Nodded, understanding without me having to explain much. "It's a damn shame what they did to you. They've been treating you like this for years, haven't they?" I just nodded. There was no point in getting into the specifics. He knew. I'd seen the way my family, the way he never tried to fit in with their expectations. Bobby had always been the black sheep of the family, the one who didn't follow the corporate ladder like Dad, who didn't wear a suit to work, who didn't care for all the things my parents obsessed over. And maybe that was part of why I felt a little safer here. Bobby didn't judge me. "I had a feeling you'd come here eventually," he said, breaking the silence again. "You need a place to crash, you've got it. But you're gonna work for it." I looked at him, not quite understanding at first. "Work for it?" I repeated. Bobby grinned, leaning back in his chair. "Yeah, I'm not a fan of freeloaders, family or not. I don't do that. Your family, so I give you'll work at the shop, help me out. I need someone who can get their hands dirty and actually stick around. You think you can handle that?" I looked down at the coffee cup in my hands, considering it. The weight of everything was still heavy on me. The sting of my family's rejection, the betrayal, the fact that I was now officially on my own. But something about Bobby's offer felt real. He wasn't going to hand me anything on a silver platter. He was going to make me earn it. And for the first time, I felt like I was in control of my life. "I can handle it," I said, finally looking up at him. Bobby grinned again, his eyes sparkling with approval. "Good. The guy who used to help me out at the shop quit last week. He got some fancy job at a dealership or something. You can take his place. The pay's not great at first, but you'll learn real skills. Oil changes, tie hole deal. You'll make decent money once you get the hang of it. Think of it as a fresh start." I nodded, feeling the first real spark of hope in weeks. I didn't know what the future held, but at least it felt like I'd leave something, not just floating along waiting for things to break me. Bobby handed me the last of the coffee, then clapped me on the shoulder. "Get some rest, kid. We'll hit the shop later today. You can crash in the spare roomats. Nothing fancy, but it's yours for as long as you need it." I felt a lump form in my throat, a mix of gratitude and exhaustion. The weight of the past few days, the fight, the betrayal, leaving my family, the quiet support was enough to ease some of the tension. I spent the rest of the morning settling into the spare room, unpacking what little I had. My life fit in that duffel bag, and it felt surreal to be here, quiet room, with no one telling me what to do or who to be. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. Later that day, Bobby took me to the shop. It wasn't much an old, well-worn garage with grease-stained floors and a few too many cars waiting to be worked on. But it was a real business, a place where people came for honest work. Bobby introduced me to Jake and Tommy, two of the guys who worked there. Jake was in his mid-20s, with hands rough from years of working on cars. Tommy was a little older, mid-30s, but both of them had the same no-nonsense attitude Bobby had. They didn't care about my past or my family drama. They just wanted to know if I could keep up, if I was willing to learn. That night, after a full day of cleaning tools and learning the basics, Bobby sat me down for a talk. "Listen," he said, his voice serious. "This isn't just about fix cars, it's about building something that's yours. You mess up, we fix it. You make mistakes, we learn from them. But you keep showing up, you keep putting in the work, and one day, this place is going to be yours. Not in the sense that I'm giving it to you, but you'll earn it." I sat there, listening, for the first time feeling like I was exactly where I needed to be. Maybe it was the sweat on my brow or the graze under my nails, but something about working with hands, about learning something real, made me feel alive again. It was hard, but it was honest. It was exactly what I needed. The days started to blur together in a good way. I woke up early, went straight to the shop, and worked until late in the evening. No more fights, no more lies, no more broken promises. Just the work, the steady rhythm of getting my hands dirty and learning something that actually mattered. Bobby didn't cut me any slack, but that was exactly what I needed. He taught me the basics, oil changes, tire rotations, brake jobs, but then he pushed me further. He showed me how to read engine diagnostics, how to fix minor electrical issues, how to patch up rust spots properly. He had this way of teaching that wasn't the technical stuff, it was about problem solving, about being patient, methodical, and thinking ahead. Jake and Tommy were always around too. Jake was the one who taught me how to handle a wrench like it was an extension of my hand, how to make sure every bolt was tightened just right. He'd been working on cars since he was 15, and he had this quiet confidence about him. Tommy was a little older and more experienced, but he was no less Han. He showed me the value of doing the job right, not fast. Fast gets you more customers, but right gets you repeat customers. He told me one day while we were working on a transmission swap. I remember the firm asked me to handle a job on my own. It was just an oil change, but it felt like a test. He watched me for a while, making sure I had all the tools in place, that I knew what I was doing. But he didn't step in. He let me make my mistakes and figure out. When I finished, he came over, gave me a nod, and said, "Not bad. You're getting the hang of it." That small moment felt bigger than anything I'd ever done at home. At the hardware store, I was just another part-timer, another guy who did the grunt work. But here, at Bobby's shop, I was learning real skills, skills that mattered. I felt like I was finally being respected for my effort, not just for my ability to follow orders. In the evenings, after the shop was closed, I'd sit down at a kitchen table with Bobby, Jake, and Tommy. We'd have a beer, talk about the day, and laugh about the weird stuff customers brought in. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was part of something. These guys didn't know about my family drama, they didn't care. They saw me for who I was now, not for what my parents had made me. I started to feel a sense of pride in what I was doing. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Every day I showed up, worked hard, and learned something new off. After a few weeks, Bobby gave me a small raise. It wasn't much, but it meant something. It meant I was earning my place, and that felt like victory. Then came my 18th birthday. It wasn't like any birthday I had before. There were no phone calls, no cards from my family. But Bobby, Jake, and Tommy had their own way of celebrating. They gave me a toolbox, nothing fancy, just a solid set with compartments and a lock. "But real mechanics have their own tools," Bobby said with a grin. "This is a start. You keep working, you'll fill it up." It meant more to me than any birthday present my parents could have given me. It wasn't just a set of tools. It was a symbol of everything I had built for myself in the past few weeks. The independence, the pride, the sense that I was finally doing something real. As the weeks passed, I started getting better at the work. I wasn't perfect, but I was improving. Bobby started giving me more complicated jobs, brake jobs, exhaust work, even minor engine diagnostics. And with each job, I felt more capable. I could see a future in this. A future where I wasn't just scraping by, but where I was building something on my own terms. One night, after a particularly tough day of work, Bobby said anything. He didn't say anything at first, just watched me, like he was trying to gauge if I was ready. Finally, he spoke. "You've been here for a couple months now," he said, leaning back in his chair. "You've flourished, it worked hard. I respect that, and I think you're ready for something more." I looked up at him confused. "More?" He smiled. "I'm offering you a partnership. Not equal shares, not yet, but 20% of the shop profits. Keep working, keep learning, and you can increase that percentage every year. When I retire, I want you to have the option to take over this place. No strings attached. You've earned it." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Bobby was offering me each year. It wasn't just a job. It was a chance to build something real, something that could be mine one day. I nodded, not sure what to say. That's a big offer. It's yours if you want it," Bobby said. "But you've got to keep working for it. No slacking." I didn't hesitate. "I'll do it." From that moment, I knew I was exactly where I was supposed to be. This was my life now. No more pretending, no more lying, no more hoping for something that would never come. I was building my future from the ground up. And for the first time, I felt proud of what I was doing. The next few months passed in a blur of work, learning, and small victories. I bought my first car, a 1998 Ford Ranger. It wasn't much, but it ran, and I thinned the self. I spent nights in the shop, working on it when I wasn't busy with other cars. Bobby let me use the shop after hours, and with Jake and Tommy's help, I got it running like new. When I sold the Ranger, I made enough money to buy a better truck, a Silverado with lower miles. Every day felt like progress, like I was finally moving forward, building something real. And I wasn't doing it alone. I had a team of sorts, that's a family, and respected me. That meant more than anything. But as the months went by, something started to nag at the back of my mind. I hadn't heard from my family in months. No texts. No calls. Not even I wasn't worried. I was too busy building my own life to care anymore. They had made their choices. And I had made mine. It started with a phone call. It had been almost a year since I left. A year of working at Bobby's shop, learning more than I ever thought would, building my own life from scratch. I was living in a small studio apartment now, fixing up my truck, and feeling a level of peace I had never known at home. I hadn't heard from my family, Tom, and I hadn't really missed them. They had made their choice, just like I had made mine. But then the phone rang one evening, while I was in the middle of changing the oil on a car in the shop. I looked down at the screen. It was Dad. I didn't think right away. I stared at the phone for a long moment, considering. The last time I had spoken to him, I was on the receiving end of his anger, his unfair punishment, and his unshakable loyalty to Ashley. I had spent 2 years trying to win his approval, only to realize that no matter what I did, it would never be enough. The phone buzzed again and again. Finally, I swiped to answer, feeling a strange mix of dread and curiosity. "Hello," I said, my voice flat like I didn't care their way. "Justin, it's your father." His voice sounded different, tired, hesitant, like he wasn't sure how to begin. "I know who it is," I replied, glancing up at Bobby, who was across the shop, wiping his hands on a rag. What he was a long pause, the kind of silence that told me he wasn't sure how to approach this. "We need to talk," he said finally. "It's about Ashley." I wasn't surprised. Ashley was always the center of their world, always at the heart of their problems. And man, it seemed, she had managed to drag me back into it, even though I had made it clear I wanted nothing to do with their mess. "What about her?" I asked, keeping my tone even. "She's pregnant," Dad said, his voice low, almost reluctant to share it. I felt my stomach tighten. "Pregnant? How far along?" 4 months, he replied, his words rushed, like he was getting it out as fast as possible. "She doesn't know what to do. Your mom. She's been struggling with work. We need your help, Justin. We can't do this alone." For a moment, I just stood there, letting the words sink in. I'd always known Ashley had a knack for getting what she wanted, but I never imagined she would take this far. And now, they were calling on me to come back, to fix the problem they had created. "You're asking me for money, aren't you?" I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "You want me to fix this, like I always have?" "No, it's not just money," he said. We don't know what to do. She's going to have a baby, and neither of us are ready for that. We thought, maybe you could come home, help us out. We're not asking you to take care of everything, but we need, please." The words hit me harder than I expected. I thought I was done with them, that I had moved on, but hearing his voice, seeing him vulnerable, for once, brought everything rushing back. The years of unfair treatment, the constant manipulation, the way they always expected me to be the one to fix things. I took a deep breath, trying to center myself. "I can't fix this, Dad. Not for you, not for you, not for her choices, and now she has to deal with the consequences. You can't keep asking me to come back and play the hero every time you mess up. I'm not asking you to be the hero, he said quickly. We just need your help. Please, Justin. We can't keep going like this. I looked over at Bobby, who was watching me now. His expression was unreadable, but I could see the faint hint of concern in his eyes. He knew this was a big decision for me. You don't get, I said, my voice quiet but firm. This isn't about me helping out. This is about you always taking Ashley's side, always enabling her. You don't see how she manipulates you. You never did, and that's the problem. I can't depart that anymore. And I'm not going to come back and fix everything for you. Dad was quiet for a long time. When he spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. Is this really what you want? To cut off your family over one argument? Trying to steady myself. It wasn't just one argument. It was years of watching Ashley get away with everything, years of you and Mom choosing her over me. And every time I tried to stand up for myself, you shut me down. This is just the last straw. I'm not coming back. There was silence on the other end of the line, a silence that stretched for what felt like forever. I thought he might hang up, but then I heard him sigh. He said quietly, I don't agree with you, but I understand. The finality of it hit me like a wave. This was it. There was no going back now. I had made my choice, and I was standing by it. Goodbye, Dad, I said, my voice steady. Take care of yourselves, and then hung up. I stood there for a moment, the weight of the conversation settling in. It wasn't that I didn't care. Part of me always would, no matter how much they hurt me. But I couldn't keep sacrificing myself for them. Not anymore. Everything okay? Bobby asked, coming over to me. I nodded, though wasn't sure if I believed it. Yeah. Just family stuff. Bobby didn't press. He just patted me on the back and said, You're doing the right thing, kid. They'll figure it out. I didn't risk you to. Bobby knew me well enough by now. He knew what this cost me, but he also knew that it was time for me to stop carrying their burdens. It wasn't my responsibility anymore. I had a life to build, a life that was mine. As I walked back to my workbench, I realized that for the first time, I wasn't looking back. I wasn't going to let guilt or love or obligation drag me back into the mess. I was finally free. The next few weeks passed quietly, filled with the rhythm of work and the steady progress I was making in the shop. Bobby was keeping me busy, and Jake and Tommy were teaching me more and more each day. I was starting to feel like I had a real future here, one I built from the ground up. Every day, I could feel the weight of my past slipping further and further away. The calls from my family stopped coming, and I almost forgot about them. But then, one afternoon, a car pulled into the shop. I didn't think much of it at first. As I wiped my hands and turned to grab a rag, I saw who was stepping out. It was my dad. I froze for a moment. The sight of him, standing there in front of the shop, dressed in his usual business casual, felt surreal. He looked older, more worn down, and for the first time, I saw him not as my father, but as someone who had carried the weight of his own decisions for far too long. He wasn't alone. My mom was with him, and of course, Ashley, standing slightly behind them, looking uncomfortable, her arms crossed over her chest. She didn't look like the confident, manipulative girl I remembered. Smaller somehow. I wiped my hands one last time, my mind racing. I wasn't ready for this. I didn't know if I ever would be. Justin, Dad said, his voice hesitant, like he wasn't sure how to start. He was standing near the front of the shop, hands in his pockets, clearly uncomfortable in this unfamiliar setting. We need to talk. I didn't answer right away. I just stood there, watching them, trying to decide if I should be angry, hurt, or something else entirely. I felt I should have been happy to see them, or at least relieved. But I wasn't. I was tired, and I was done with all of it. You've got to be kidding me, Jake muttered under his breath, standing next to me at the workbench. He didn't cross his arms, watching the scene unfold. I appreciated his company in that moment more than I could express. What do you want? I finally asked, my voice sharp, but calm. I wasn't going to let into my life without understanding the reality of it. Dad glanced at Mom, who nodded slightly, then back at me. We need you to come home. This has gone on long enough. You've made your point, Justin. But you can't just walk away from us like this. I didn't walk, I said, my voice low but steady. I left because I was never welcome there in the first place. You all made it clear, over and over again, that I didn't matter. You always sided with Ashley, much she did, no matter how much she hurt me. So I left. You don't understand, my mom said, her voice breaking a little. Things are bad, Justin. Ashley, she's struggling. She needs help. Your father and I know. I cut her off, my frustration finally bubbling over. Ashley isn't my responsibility anymore. She made her choices, and so did you. I turned to Dad. You were supposed to be the one who stood up for me, who believed me. But you didn't. You kicked me out for standing up for myself, and I'm not going to some doc because you need someone to clean up her mess. I saw Dad flinch, but he didn't look away. Instead, he took a step forward, his voice quiet but firm. Look, I'm not here to argue about the past, he said. I know I screwed up. I know I should have listened to you. I know I failed you. But Ashley's pregnant, Justin. She doesn't have anyone. Your mother and I, we can't do this alone. I looked over at Ashley, standing there with her arms crossed, her expression gaudy. She wasn't apologizing. She was just waiting. She didn't get it. She never would. And you expect me to just come running back to fix things for you? I asked, the bitterness rising in my throat. You want me to fix the mess you've made, Dad? I'm not going to be your safety net, Dad. Not anymore. There was silence. Mom looked like she was going to say something, but Dad stopped her. He didn't look angry anymore. He just looked tired. I get it, Justin, he said quietly. I've screwed up. But I'm asking you, as your father, come home. Help us. Please? My heart twisted, but the answer was still the same. I'd already made my decision. I wasn't going back. I had built something real here, something that mattered, and I wasn't going to sacrifice it. I'm not coming back, I said, my voice final. Not like this. Not after everything. You need to figure it out. You need to face the consequences of your choices. I'm done carrying you. Dad stood there for a long moment, the weight of my words sinking in. Finally, he nodded as if he had expected this answer. All right, he said softly, we'll go. But Justin, we'll always be your family. I just want you to not say anything. I didn't need to. I watched them turn and walk away, leaving the shop in the same quiet, resigned manner that they had entered. Bobby, Jake, and Tommy didn't say anything at first. They didn't need to. They knew what I was feeling. You okay? Bobby asked after a long moment. I nodded. Yeah? I'm good. Jake slapped me on the back. You did the right thing, man. Don't let them drag you back into that mess. I smiled, the weight in my chest feeling a little them. I've gone with them. I've got my own life now. And that's all I need. The rest of the day passed like a blur. We finished up a few jobs, talked a bit, laughed a little, and then called it a day. I didn't feel angry anymore. I didn't feel anything but relief. And as the sun set and I stood in the quiet of the shop, I realized that I had finally made my peace. I had built something on my own, something real. Not even let anyone, not even my family, take that from me. I wasn't looking back anymore. I was moving forward, and that was all that mattered. The months following my last confrontation with my family were a blur and personal growth. I threw myself into the shop, learning everything I could from Bobby, Jake, and Tommy. I wasn't just fixing cars anymore. I was starting to build something that was mine, my future, my security. It wasn't the life I had imagined when I was the life I had earned. And it was enough. Bobby had made me a 50-50 partner at the shop, and the weight of that responsibility felt good. For the first time in my life, I wasn't relying on anyone else to take care of me. I was standing on my own 2 feet. We had plans to expand the business, and Bobby was teaching me everything he knew about running it. I could see the potential, the possibilities, and for first time, I actually believed in my future. I'd moved into my own place, a small studio apartment on the other side of town. It wasn't much, but it was mine. It was the first place I had ever truly felt at home. I spent my days at the place, working on my truck, and building the life I had always dreamed of. I wasn't living in the shadow of my family anymore, constantly trying to earn their approval or fix their mistakes. I was free. But even as I moved forward, there were moments when I couldn't escape the past. I heard from my grandma a few times. She called Bobby's shop a few weeks after Dad had shown up, asking how I was doing. She always spoke in the same way and trying to manipulate me into coming back. She told me how hard things had gotten for my parents, how Ashley was struggling with the baby, how they were falling apart without me. But I didn't answer her calls. I didn't need to. I had already made my decision. They had made their choices, and I wasn't going to go back and play the part of the good son who always fixed everything. I wasn't going to let them draw into their world of manipulation and lies. I had learned the hard way that I couldn't change them. The only thing I could change was myself. It wasn't until Christmas that I heard from Ashley again. She sent me a card. It was short, the kind of message more like an obligation than a genuine attempt at reconciliation. Merry Christmas from your niece, Emily. She'd love to meet her uncle someday. We're at 8047 Pine Street if you ever want to visit. Ashley. I stared at the card a long time, turning it over in my hands. Emily was almost a year old by now. I hadn't met her, and I didn't plan to. It wasn't her fault that she had been born into this mess, but I couldn't bring myself to forgive Ashley, or my parents, for everything that had happened. I thought about what Bobby had said to me not long ago. "You can't go back, Justin. You've built something good here. Don't let them drag you back into that mess." He was right. I wasn't going to fix their problems for them. I wasn't going to let Ashley's manipulations or my family's dysfunction take away everything I had worked for. I threw the card in the trash. I wasn't going to backup plan anymore. I wasn't going to be the one who always had to fix their messes. I had my own life now, and it was better than anything I had ever hoped for. That night, I sat in the small living room of my apartment. The faint hum of the heater filling the silence. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel sad. I felt peaceful. It wasn't easy, but it was mine. I had built it. And as the year drew to a close, I realized something that I had never been able to understand before had now. The peace I had earned. It wasn't because I had escaped my family. It was because I had finally chosen myself. The next morning, I woke up early. The sun was barely rising, and the streets were still quiet. I grabbed Mike out to my truck. It wasn't much, but it was mine. And it had taken a long time to get here. But I was finally at peace with where I was, with who I had become. I wasn't going to let the past control me anymore. The weight of it had been lifted. I drove to the shop, the road stretching out in front of me, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was headed in the right direction. My family. They were still lost in their own mess. But I wasn't their problem anymore. I had my own life to build now. And as I walked into the shop, ready to work, ready to keep building my future, I knew I had made the right choice. I wasn't going back. I was moving forward. Nothing was going to stop me. This life was mine, and it was exactly what I had earned.